The rake is one of the worst melees ever to be added in this game, which is funny because this was the first time an additional weapon was added to the roster. The rake has 3 major problems that make it the worst melee in the game: the weapon's arch, swing pattern, and speed. We've already gone into detail about how melees work, hitboxes being all wonky. These hit rates and the ping that you have determine the reliability of melee. The entire point of the last video on melees was the fact that half the melees missed even though they clearly shouldn't. Even when the sound plays, the melee will miss. That's why the host, or when you play single player, melees are way more reliable. But even when playing single player or being the host, the melee can still miss. The rake is the only weapon in the game that has an arch that goes straight up, not diagonal or horizontal. Due to this fact, we already have the range of the arch x'd out. Since this has no sweep, it means you can barely manipulate the arch to your advantage. So the only zombies you can hit are the zombies that are directly in front of you, not the zombies around you. Having to someone aim with a melee is pretty much the last thing you want to do. Second, the rake's swing pattern is horrible. It has one single horizontal swing. In order to force that melee swing, you have to swing the rake twice. This isn't Vermintide 2 where you could force a certain attack. If you shove, the melee pattern resets and you have to do the vertical and diagonal swings first before you actually get to the good swing. The vertical and diagonal swings are both the worst type of swings in the entire game. Think of the baseball bat and the paddle bat. The second swing almost always seems to miss for some reason. It's horizontal or nothing. Don't forget that once you finally get to the third swing, it's the slowest of the 3 swings. The rake is way too slow for no reason. Compare it to any other melee and you'll notice it instantly. I remember raking leaves in the backyard of my parents' house when I was like 10, and I remember swinging that thing like if it was a medieval weapon. If Lee could swing it fast, then the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors should be able to too. F tier. It should honestly be in its own tier of unusable. The fire axe is the first melee you're introduced to in Left 4 Dead 2, and for good reason. All of the axe's swings are horizontal and are very wide, which makes it reliable. Does that mean it can't miss? No, but it also means it won't miss that much. With the ability to manipulate the swing's arch and the fact that its arch is already wide enough, it can basically hit anything in a 360-degree angle. Most people say that the axe is bad because of its speed. That's just not true. Most of the time when you use a melee, you'll melee once and immediately follow up with a shove due to how fast the comms will swarm you. Maybe you'll get an extra swing in there by luck, but in my experience, it's always been melee, then shove. Even with the argument that the axe is being slow, you can always just do the melee swap trick to swing faster. The horizontal swing is just too reliable. It's why this melee is just S tier. I should have mentioned this earlier, but blunt weapons already have 2 disadvantages going for them. They cannot cut through the smoker's tongue, and the zombies you kill with blunt weapons are still collisionable, unlike the sharp weapons where once you kill a zombie, you can phase through them instantly. With that in mind, baseball bat already doesn't have much going for it. Its first swing is horizontal, which means it's the most reliable. Then we got the 2 other swings, diagonal, miss. The baseball bat is good at only one thing. If the zombies get too close, you pull it out, swing, shove, swing again. The moment you swing twice, you're basically gambling. C tier. The fastest melee in the game, but it also misses a lot. On top of that, your screen shakes a lot when using this weapon. It's like having the head bob enabled when playing Vermintide. It's horrible. The swing pattern is mostly horizontal, but it's still for some reason unreliable. Also, the sound that it makes when you hit a common infected is just wonky. It sounds like broken wood. I don't even know how to describe it. I know this has nothing to do with the gameplay, it just makes the weapon more unfavorable. I feel like the only thing this weapon has going for it is the fact that it's good at killing tanks and witches. It's risky because of how much it often misses. Armored zombies also have a chance of dropping one, but you probably already have a better melee weapon in that in most scenarios where that happens. I guess the only unique thing about it is that a zombie could drop it. I'm not sure why, but this isn't always called the Nightstick by everybody. Some people call it the Tofana, the Tonfana, the Tonfa. I don't even know how to pronounce it, which apparently was a weapon that originated in China and was practiced with upper class martial arts. How's that for a weapon origin? F tier. A little reskin of the bat, except this one is a lot more uncommon. Even though it's a reskin, I still feel like this melee misses a lot more than the regular bat. Maybe that's just me, but still, it's basically got the same problems as the bat. C tier. It has the same swing pattern as the axe, but it's a blunt weapon, so automatically it's worse. This is yet another melee weapon that just misses a lot. Hell, melee video we made a long time ago shows that the melee clearly misses, but at least it has a cool sound effect when you hit a zombie with it, until it becomes annoying, in which you just want to use a different melee weapon. When you're holding out the guitar, it also takes up a lot of your screen. It's not a huge issue or anything, but it could definitely be a little bit annoying when it comes to playing something like Expert, where every hit counts. The funny thing about the guitar is that it's really rare, and it can only be found in a couple campaigns, so you're not going to be using this weapon very often. D tier. The frying pan is an extremely reliable melee weapon. The swing pattern is strictly horizontal from my experience, and I feel like this melee weapon misses the least. The frying pan is most likely the best melee weapon to use when it comes to a laggy server. It's not perfect though, and it's harder to fight tanks and hordes because of the melee swing speed. Chargers could also probably scratch you twice before you kill them, all because of the frying pan's really slow swing speed. Still, I'd rather have a melee weapon that's reliable than one where you're basically gambling on the second hit. You always lose when it comes to gambling. That and the horrible sound that plays every time you land a swing. B tier. The crowbar is a horrible melee weapon. Not only is the swing speed slow, but the hit registration is just jacked up. Seriously, the crowbar has got to be the #1 melee that misses the most. I'm assuming it has something to do with the arch, but when I actually see the visuals of the arch, it looks fine. It's just a mystery to me how certain melees miss more than other melees. There's almost zero upsides. The only upside is apparently the shove speed. Yeah, this melee weapon has the fastest shove animation apparently. But even if that is true, the difference is almost negligible, and it's not worth the janky reliability of this weapon. The weirdest part about the crowbar is that it's considered a sharp weapon, even though it's clearly a blunt weapon visually, unless you count the blunt ends of the crowbar to be sharp. F tier. The golden crowbar was introduced in the Last Stand campaign, and it was spread along to the other campaigns as an Easter egg. The way you get it in the Last Stand update is hitting this door until it breaks. To my disappointment, there is no difference other than the cosmetic when it comes to the golden crowbar. This isn't TF2 where people could turn into gold. Now, I'm not saying this should be some OP insta-kill weapon. Melees are already like that, but I can't help but think this is a missed opportunity. Yeah, people are gonna say that will make the Last Stand feel goofy and unbalanced. I say make the golden crowbar like the 1-inch punch, but in campaign mode. Only in campaign mode. Maybe then I wouldn't be so disappointed in it. A piss yellow reskin. F tier. The shovel was also introduced with the Last Stand, and it's nowhere near as bad as the pitchfork or the crowbar, but it's still pretty bad. It's by far the slowest melee weapon in the game, so killing tanks and witches is automatically going to be harder for you. Chargers will for sure get 2 swings on you before you get 2 swings on them. Isn't that insane? At least has a pretty reliable swing pattern, and it's almost entirely horizontal. This weapon is usable, but there's still better options. D tier. A straight up better version of the golf club. It has the same swing pattern, except it's a sharp weapon, so it can cut through smoker tongues. It's got a better hit detection, and the swing speed is the same. Because of this, the Katana is pretty good melee weapon, and it's perfect for those anime mods I see everyone play with, to the point where the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors somehow learn how to use this thing like a shogun. It's pretty darn good, but those diagonal sweeps make it a gamble to use this weapon. It's A tier. I want to put it in S tier. Because of the melee arches constantly going diagonal, it makes this melee unreliable. A tier. The knife. Straight up copy and paste it from Counter-Strike source. And again, I should have mentioned this, any Last Stand weapon is a PC exclusive weapon, so console players are left out of the fun. Thankfully, they're not really missing much. The knife, before it was released as an official weapon, was amazing. Yeah, the knife was so good before the Last Stand update that you could cheat it in some custom maps and brute force it into an existence. During this time, without a doubt, the knife had one of the most insane horizontal swings ever. It almost always hits. Then when the Last Stand came out, it was nerfed so badly that its hitboxes were broken and it didn't even align with the view model animation and the crosshair. Then recently it was buffed into its old version, making it a solid melee weapon. I guess people were shaming it for too long and the Last Stand team just couldn't stand it anymore and needed to fix it. The knife now just looks ridiculous. This little thing sweeping zombies like the freaking fire axe is goofy. If only the Last Stand update just updated the knife to look more like a Bowie knife or something like Chris Redfield's knife in Resident Evil 5. It's good, don't get me wrong, it just doesn't look like it belongs in the game. Even though it has an amazing arch and a hit reg, it's still pretty slow, very slow. But honestly, with how much they buffed this, it belongs in S tier. The Machete. That's right, Jason Voorhees. It's fast, it's sharp, and it's the freaking Nightstick on steroids. The only thing holding the Machete back is how unreliable it is. Why is that? Its swing pattern has diagonal sweeps similar to the Katana, and the footage speaks for itself. It's a real shame because the Machete is close to being the best melee weapon in the game without a doubt. Since it's so fast, it kills tanks and witches instantly. It should be an S tier, but those diagonal sweeps just don't cut it for me. A tier. Golf club is similar to the other blunt weapons. It's the second fastest blunt weapon in the game, so it's good against tanks. The hit registration though, it's not that great, but it's good enough. Definitely better than the crowbar. Golf club is one of those rare items that you rarely see in the game. I'm pretty sure it only appears in the passing, so you ain't gonna be using this weapon that much. The sound it makes when hitting zombies is pretty unique though. I'm not sure how a golf club would sound like hitting someone, but I guess this is the closest thing you're gonna get. The golf club is pretty decent, but there's other melee weapons that just straight up outclass it. D tier. The chainsaw is the most divisive melee weapon in the entire game. It's not bad, but it's definitely not good either. But it's a bad melee weapon for multiple reasons. Limited range. The chainsaw is unique in that it doesn't have an arch. It has more of a straight line similar to the rake, but smaller. All hit rays are clumped up into one little area on your screen, making this the most reliable melee weapon in the game, which means it'll never miss, no matter what. But since it has a limited arch, it doesn't mean it can kill everything at a 360-degree angle like Fire Axe. Another characteristic exclusive to the chainsaw is the fact that it kills one zombie at a time, and that's one of its problems. Even when you find a perfect spot where the zombies can funnel into you, you'll eventually get hit because one zombie manages to get that last hit before dying. This brings up another issue. It's a melee weapon that has ammo. No, this isn't no room in hell where you can refill it. Once it's out, the survivors just decide to chuck it, leaving you with a big horde and a single pistol. Another thing about the chainsaw is that it tracks all common infected and tanks due to the noise. Believe it or not, chainsaw does compensate for these issues with one upside. You get damage resistance when holding down mouse 1 with the chainsaw. This only applies to commons, not anything else. What a weird ass melee. D tier. There's not much known about the Riot Shield since it doesn't spawn without mods. Brute forcing it in with workshop add-ons reveals that the melee that rivals the baton in speed. Its arch is unique in where its alt swings are similar to the old knife. It's a blunt weapon and it shows since the survivors straight up punch whatever infected is in front of them. Damn. F tier, since you can't even use it. This melee weapon has a name, but I'm not gonna even try to say it. Unlike the Riot Shield, this doesn't have a finished in-game model. There's mods that restore it, but at this point it's mostly 90% mod, since the original version of the melee doesn't even have a finished model. But from what I can assume, it would act like the baseball bat, and it would make a unique swinging sound. There's almost zero info on this melee on the internet, surprisingly, and I find it weird that the Last Stand added all these other weapons and melees, but it didn't add the Riot Shield nor this melee back into the game. There's nothing we can do. This is what I mean by, like, if the tank... Get this grandfather!